All right, everybody. Big Cop Diesel coming at you. And today's video, I am talking about security guard pay. Now, trigger warning. If you are a security company owner or manager, you're not going to like this video. Let's get into it. All right, guys. So, what I want to talk about today is security guard pay. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'll be the first to tell you that security guards are very underpaid, as well as most other lines of work, such as police officers, corrections officers, you name it. Anybody in the safety and security space is underpaid. And why do I say that? Well, number one, because it's true. But if you think about um, the ability to um, work long hours, work weekends and holidays, missing family functions, things with your kids, that kind of stuff. That alone warrants more pay. And yeah, 99.9% of the time, you're going to work a contract and nothing is going to happen. It's going to be same day in and day out. You're going to punch in at the same time. You're going to, see the same people. You're going to have the same interactions. And again, most of the time, nothing is going to happen. But then there's that 0.1% of the time where something does happen, whether it be some type of an accident, some type of an altercation. You may have to remove somebody from the property. You may even have to get into a physical situation where you either have to physically remove somebody from your client's property. You may have to physically restrain somebody while police are en route, or you may have to effect some sort of arrest again until the police come. And that's what really should be being paid for. The mindset of these companies should be, yep, yeah, 9 times out of 10, nothing is going to go wrong, but we need to pay people for when things do go wrong. Now, as with any business, it's in the business's interest to pay the employees the least amount of money that they can get away with, that the employee will agree to work for. It's in the company's best interest because it's in the company's best interest to make money. It's a company's job, if you will, is to create a profit. The company's job is not to make you financially secure. That's your job. Now, having said that, what are some of the ways that we as security professionals can get higher quality jobs, better paying jobs, and help ourselves become more financially secure? Now, a couple ways to do that. Education is number one, right? Go out and get a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree in criminal justice. They have degrees specifically for the security field now. So if that's something that is in your wheelhouse to do, you have the means and the ability to do that, that's actually a really good way to double dip. Because if you're working a midnight shift somewhere and nobody's there, you can bring your school books to work, study, get paid while you study to better yourself. Even at the prison, one of the prisons I worked at, the shift command allowed people who were actively involved in college to bring the school books in so that they could study. If you have no desire to go to college, or it's just not in um, uh, your idea of what you want to do, then the next thing up is certifications. There's a bunch of professional certifications in the security field that you can get, and those certifications will help you um, set yourself apart from other people. Now, a lot of the certifications that you'll see in the security field, you probably never even heard of. And typically in the security industry, the only people that hold those certifications are usually the business owners and the upper management. Some companies will pay for you to get certified, and some won't. And so when I'm talking about certification through like ACES and some of these others, there's a bunch out there. And then below that is just kind of, I call these run-of-the-mill certifications, even though the average security guard does not have them. But I highly, highly recommend that you get these certifications. First and foremost would be a concealed pistol license, or a CCW, depending on where you live, what the verbiage is, but a license to carry a firearm. Now, I realize that unlike Michigan, we don't need a separate certification to carry a firearm on a job for security as opposed to just being a concealed carrier. I do realize that in other states, that is a complete and separate certification to work armed security in other states. So just make sure you check the laws where you live before you go down that rabbit hole. But a concealed pistol certification or a license would be top, because that should, and I say should, that should command more money. If you're working at ABC Security Company and you have unarmed guys and you have armed guys, one would imagine that the armed guys are going to be paid a little bit more than the unarmed guys, but that's not always the case. So again, check with your company to see either there's something that's published that says that, or if there isn't, get with them and say, hey, if I carry a gun for you guys, will I make any more money? I would have to assume yes, because of the way contracts are structured. The contracts are always going to be structured, well, I shouldn't say always, but most of the time will be structured where the company is charging the client more money for armed security than they are for unarmed security. So there's no reason why that money can't be divvied out to you as well. And the reason why they charge more money is because A, they can, but B, there's the insurance consideration. An insurance policy for an armed guard is going to be higher for obvious reasons than an unarmed guard. So in no universe, in my mind, should a company be paying an armed guy the same amount as an unarmed guy, but you won't know unless you ask. The next certification I want to talk about is CPR First Aid AED. Again, every company is different and every client is different. Some companies require that you have at least a CPR certification, and the reason why they're doing that is because either a current client that they have, or they want to be able to market to potential clients who are going to require at least a CPR certification for their site. So I've always maintained a BLS, a basic lifesaver certification. So it's a step above just your run-of-the-mill CPR certification. Well, 2 years ago, I became a certified instructor for first aid, CPR, and AED through the American Red Cross. But my entire adult life, I've held a certification because of the jobs that I had. So if you want to set yourself apart, I highly recommend getting your own CPR certification, because again, some companies will provide that training, some won't. And if I own a company and you come in to interview with me and you already have your CPR certification, that's at least going to give you at least a one up on the next guy, because in my mind, I'm thinking dollars. Now I do not have to spend the money to get you certified. Next certification below that would be any kind of de-escalation training. De-escalation is huge. And guys, those of you watching this video, presumably you're a security guard or you're working in a security field. I want you to understand that you can have all the guns and gadgets and all that stuff. You can have your plate carrier loaded up with stuff. Don't do that. I have a video on that. But you can have all this stuff. But you got to remember, anytime force has to be used is because there's been a breakdown in communication. And de-escalation is simply a method to be able to communicate with people. Having good de-escalation skills will prevent you having to use force. And when you don't have to use force, that lessens the likelihood of liability, right? As soon as you put your hands on somebody, you've entered the Rubicon, you've crossed the Rubicon of going into a situation where you could possibly be liable for any injuries sustained to this person or any damage to any property as a result of putting hands on someone. So if you can de-escalate, and it's not always feasible, it's not always tactically sound. If somebody draws a gun on you, that's not really the time to try to de-escalate. You have to meet force with force. But if the time and circumstances allow, you should try to de-escalate. So if you've gone through some sort of de-escalation training, again, that's going to be a plus, because as a security company owner, number one, I'm thinking about liability for my company, but as a security company owner, as a security company, a client is hiring me to mitigate risk and liability for them as well. So that helps stack the deck in my favor as a business owner. So again, if you have some kind of de-escalation certification, that should give you another notch up above the regular guy that doesn't. And then above and beyond that, other certifications, you start going down rabbit holes, depending on either what you see that the market needs or wants, or something that just might be something that you're passionate about yourself. Give an example. So I have additional certification as a mass shooter instructor. So what that allows me to do is provide training to clients who have businesses and organizations that feel that they could benefit from this type of training. So again, there's a bunch of different ones out there. Maybe you want to do school security. So having an active shooter certification would presumably give you a leg up on somebody that doesn't. Because part of being a good leader and as a security company owner, you need to be able to say, okay, I have these people that have these skills. They would fit very well for these clients. And then these other people that maybe don't have as many certifications, they're okay for a different set of clients. Now, the other part of this thing is, let's talk about the money. Let's get back to the money. So now you have a bargaining chip, okay? If you have paid out of your pocket, or let's say the previous security company paid to put you through some of this stuff, but either way, you have these certifications. These are part of your portfolio. And you go into an interview and they say, well, why should I hire you? Well, now you have some leverage. You have some things you can say other than, hey, I'm the greatest person to ever put on a security guard uniform. That's why you should hire me. So above and beyond that, you can say, listen, I have this training and I have this experience. And so if the security company owner is thinking ahead of the game and you have some of these certifications, they should immediately be able to think in their mind, okay, well, this person will be very good for this account or that account, or I don't have to pay money. At least if it's just monetary, they should be saying to themselves, well, I don't have to pay money to put this person through this training. So now you have a bargaining chip. So you say, hey, man, I like this job. You should, or I think I'd be a good fit for this job. And the reason why you should hire me is because I have these certifications. And then after that, it just depends on how the security company has their pay rate set up. Now, you got to remember that security companies, it's very hard for a security company to charge every client the same amount of money, right? Every client is different. The security requirements are going to be different. So because of that, again, if I own a security company and client A, let's say my bill rate to them is $40 an hour, and I have my security guards set at making 25 an hour. And then client B, my bill rate is $30 an hour. And the security guards at that site are making, let's say, $15 an hour. So I have some margin to work with, right? The margin is the difference between what I'm billing the client and what I'm paying the security guard. And there's a formula to all that, and you need to remember that. So for you being a security guard thinking about money, obviously your goal is to try to make as much money as you can hourly. And you want to have something to justify that with. And the justification would be what I just said, having certain certifications. The other side of that, though, is that the security company, you got to remember, they got bills to pay. They got to keep the lights on. They got to, all the stuff behind the scenes that you don't see. You might see your operations manager. If it's a smaller company, you might interact with the owner, and they pop up and they come on the site to see how you're doing and make sure you have everything you need. But you don't see the backside of that. They have payroll, they have taxes, they have insurance, They have all the back off, and that stuff costs money. So that's where that margin comes in, and they want to make a profit as well. So after they pay you, the security guard, and they pay what's called their overhead, meaning the lights, the heat, the computers, all this stuff, there should be some money left over so they can actually pay themselves for what they're doing. So, but again, the goal for you should be to make as much money as you can. So this should also guide you when you're on the internet and you're looking at security jobs. You can go on the internet and go on different sites like Indeed and ZipRecruiter and check out these jobs. So that should also play into what jobs you apply for and which ones you don't. There's some jobs that you should not be applying for. Give an example. Where I'm at in Michigan, I've seen armed security jobs. The average rate that they pay is $25 from what I've seen. And I've worked a bunch of these accounts and they've been higher and they go lower. But I've seen job postings for armed security for as low as $11 an hour. Now, you as an individual, you got to be smart. You got to tell yourself, okay, I'm not working for $11 an hour, armed or not. Why would you go work a security job where there is the potential that you may have to get into some sort of situation where you have to physically remove somebody, where your chances of getting in a fight are a lot higher for $11, especially carrying a firearm, because that 10x's all the liability, all the issues that come up when you can go to Target and make $15 to $18 an hour pushing carts around or putting stock on shelves. So you got to start thinking, right, money. So you have to have a baseline of what you're willing to work for as far as money. Now, could you go lower? I'll give you the example, $25. Now, a lot of these companies are 1099, meaning that they don't take taxes out, they don't do any of that. You work your hours, they give you that money. Now it's up to you to file your taxes. That's a whole different thing. Now, is there a situation where I might work for less than 25 an hour? Maybe. It depends on if there's some other kind of a perk. For instance, if I'm working an account where I need to sit in a parking lot of some business and all I got to do is sit in a vehicle and patrol. Well, the perk for me would be if they provide the vehicle. So now I'm not putting wear and tear on my vehicle. I'm not burning my gas, but I'm still sitting around. So that might be something that I might do, especially if I'm in a parking lot observing and you're really not doing anything unless the people call you because somebody drove in behind, somebody tailgated somebody behind somebody through the gate or something like that. Um, but if it's more labor intensive, then the money has to be there, right? I would not do that same job where I'm in a parking lot sitting in a company vehicle. That's a job that I simply would not do for less than $20 an hour, 1099 or otherwise. Um, 20 would be my very least amount. The other thing is hours. If I do a $25 an hour job where I'm in a company vehicle, I'm not burning my gas or any of that kind of stuff, uh, and to make it worth my while, it's a 12-hour shift because that's a pretty good day, right? So would I do that same job for 6 hours? Probably not. So again, you got to kind of weigh these things out, the pros and cons. If it's a job where um, um, there is an expectation of some sort of a threat, the money's got to be there. If it's a lot of these jobs now are threats, right? Somebody gets fired, they say, I'm going to come shoot the place up, whatever. So then they'll hire somebody like me to come hang out. um, that's the kind of work that I won't do that for less than $30 an hour. Excuse me, and that has to be 1099 as well. And even at the rates that I'm just now talking to you guys about, that's still pretty low compared to, again, if I have to get into some kind of scuffle with somebody and I have to try to restrain somebody or remove somebody. So there's pros and cons to everything. So just take that stuff into consideration. One other thing I want to talk about real quick. that I kind of touched on a minute ago, guys, stop taking these low-paying security jobs. If I, as a security company owner or manager, know that there's some guy out there that's willing to work an arms position for less than $20 an hour, I'm good. If I got guys that are going to come in the door and carry a gun for me for $12, $13 an hour, I mean, that's great for me. But guys, don't be putting yourself in those situations. You got to remember, when you're brand new to carrying a gun, it's cool, it's awesome, you're excited about it and all that, but don't sell yourself short, because you have to remember that carrying a firearm is a huge responsibility, a huge responsibility. So do you want to put yourself in a position to where you may potentially have to take someone's life for 11 or 12 or $13 an hour? I mean, there's really no dollar amount that justifies that, but come on, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel if you're going sub $20 an hour on that. And if enough people refuse to work for those wages, if security companies start to have a hard time filling spots with qualified guys, they have no choice but to pay more. If I'm posting a job and I have these requirements and I have the pay rate and people are coming in the door and they're like, nah, man, I'm not working for that. If I'm having a problem, it's not rocket science. It means I got to start paying more money. And, it's kind of funny to me that these security companies, they all want military experience. And I get it. I'm a veteran. You want military experience because you got guys that know how to follow instructions, that will do presumably a better job than someone that's never been in the military. But we know that's not always the case. Sometimes veterans are the biggest douchebags on the planet when it comes to some of this stuff. Not always, right? Most of the time, you're going to get a good product. But these security companies want guys with military experience, law enforcement experience, and that makes sense. But then you want to pay them the same amount as some guy coming off the street that maybe only had a CPL for a year, right? And I remember I called a guy. He had an ad, and it said starting at whatever the rate was. And so I asked him, I said, so if I'm coming in the door to you, I asked him, I confirmed what the starting rate was. And he said, yep, that's the starting rate. And I said, so is that the same for everybody? People that, no matter, he's like, yep. I said, so you saw my resume, right? And he's like, yep, I'm very impressed with it. I said, thank you. Um, but I said, if that's your mindset, that you're going to pay somebody like me, whose resume that you already admitted that you're impressed with, the same as somebody that you're bringing off the street, then this just won't be a good fit for me. And it wasn't a hostile conversation. It wasn't, anything like that. But I put it in his mind. So now he's got the seed in his mind. And of course, if he can get down and if he can get guys coming in that have my experience or maybe even more, that are willing to work for that amount, life is good for him. So there's two sides of that coin. So just think about it, guys. Remember, if you want to make more money, you want to get more certifications so that you can leverage, at least have a bargaining chip to negotiate a higher starting rate. Or if you're already at a security company, that again, you want that bargaining chip so that you can justify when you go into your boss and say, hey man, I'd like to get a raise. I come to work on time. I've been here a year, whatever it is. The client loves me. I think I deserve to make more than everybody else. But again, remember, there's that margin. And sometimes if the smaller the company, the smaller the margin. If I'm billing a site, let's say I'm billing a site $30 an hour and I'm paying a guard $25 an hour, the chances of you getting a raise are slim to none. And if you did get a raise, it will be pennies, because again, there's only $5 that I have left to work with to pay the bills, to make this thing work. So again, knowing the numbers, that should guide you when you're looking at these security companies. Now, I'll throw another thing in there. That's another thing that could be happening is you might see that security guard job for, let's say, $13 an hour. Well, you don't know what the bill rate is, and you probably will never know what the bill rate is. So you don't know if the security guard company is billing the client $40 an hour for you to be there and you're getting 13. You don't know if they're billing them $17 an hour. Now, typically, from my experience as an ops manager, the margin will be smaller and this company was a medium-sized company, I would imagine, but they had an account where they had multiple sites. I'm talking tons, hundreds of sites. So the company's bill rate wasn't much above what they were paying the security guards. But the reason why they were able to make it work is because they made up in volume what they were lacking in money. Yes, they could have went to the client and said, hey, we need to bill you more money. And the client would have said, yeah, we'll get right on that. And then they would have looked for a company that would do the same job cheaper. So there are some different layers to this stuff. There's no blanket way of doing this stuff when it comes to security guard companies. It really just depends on how their business is set up, what their bill rate is set up, and all that. So anyways, guys, if you found any value in this video, please like and share. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can see every time I drop a new video. If you guys are out there working right now, keep your head on a swivel, stay safe. And guys, stop working for these low-paying security jobs. Aim high, but give them a reason to pay you more. All right, and the last thing is if you are seeking certifications, I got you. All right, I am a certified firearms instructor, so I can get you certified to carry a firearm. Um, I am a de-escalation instructor, so I can get you certified in de-escalation. I'm also a first aid, a CPR AED instructor, so I can get you certified with the American Red Cross. So those are 3 certifications I offer. I can do those a la carte, meaning one altogether, or I can put together a class and do them all. So if you need one or more of those certifications, make sure you hit me up. If you don't need any of those certifications but know somebody that could use those, please share this information with them. All right, everybody. Peace.